So this week's been a bit of a crazy week in the House of Commons with the Speaker resigning and all the stuff about the expenses. So there's lots of issues that have come up about the House of Commons in general and parliamentary reform. Should MPs, should there be as many MPs as there are? How should they work? What hours should they work? Lots of questions about the whole system really has come up.
I think it's interesting that the people have been saying for years and years, let's have someone else decide what expenses are reasonable for MPs, and it's taken something like this fiasco with with Porngate from Jackie Smith and Hazel Blear's things and all like that. It's taken something of these proportions for someone to actually step in and say, yeah, actually, you guys can't decide. We're going to set up an independent tribunal for to look at your expenses claims, and we're capping the amount you can claim on such and such things. I mean, this is common sense. Why didn't they think to do this before?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's been a bit ridiculous that they've been sort of regulating it themselves for so long. I mean, you could argue that it's been working so far, so why change it? But clearly it hasn't. I mean, I think one of the things about kind of the information revolution that's sort of come about in the last, couple of decades is it's kind of opened up things to people, and they're a lot more aware of what's going on now. I think it is about time that someone comes in and at least has a look at it, and try something else,
The thing that sort of really concerns me is because they've forced the Speaker of the House of Commons to step down with all the claims surrounding his expenses. Like I read recently, he'd used his air miles to fly his family from his constituency up in Glasgow somewhere, I think, down to Westminster. And he's obviously only supposed to use these air miles for himself. But have they just turned him into a scapegoat? And do they sort of assume that this is going to be the final chapter of the expenses scandal? Because I'm not sure it's going to be that way. I think it's going to keep going for quite a while.
I don't think expenses is the problem here. I think it's a much wider issue than just expenses. I think it's the whole system of Parliament which has been called into question. The whole reason MPs get into politics, the skills that they have, what they do, the whips. I think that's the more important issue. I think expenses is slowly becoming just the trigger for the more important subjects that are going to come out from that. And I think probably the Speaker has been scapegoated, but it seems that MPs want change, they want reform, and the only way they thought they could get that was from getting rid of the Speaker.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure that the reasons why people become MPs needs to be sort of reformed, because I think if you hear them, they generally get into it for the right reasons. Unfortunately, the system's open to abuse, it's open to greed, and they're all human ultimately, aren't they? And it's, if you offer someone the chance to abuse a system and think they can get away with it, then they're going to do that, whether it's through expenses or other things.
Definitely. I mean, everyone's quick to sort of criticise them for doing all the stuff that they're doing with like second homes and that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, yes, it's crap that they can do that because they're public servants and we're basically paying for them, and that is terrible. But if someone offered me a job and said, well, actually, we can just pay for you can basically get a second house or have your mortgage paid off, like you would be, the temptation is just enormous, isn't it, to do that? I mean, I can't say that I would be above doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, we do elect them to be the sort of voice of morals in the country, really, but we've got to remember that they are human. What they've done is wrong. Let's not get away from that.
I think it's less to do with sort of personal greed of MPs, and it's more to do with having a reform the system, which is it's looking like is what's going to happen.
The question is how far is the reform going to go? Is it going to be a major upheaval, or are they just going to tweak little bits, do we reckon?
I think they'll probably just tweak it. It's not in anyone's interest to have a major reform. I mean, there's lots of talk of things like shortening, reducing the number of MPs, increasing the time in Parliament, even things as far along as getting rid of the monarchy. And that's not going to happen, really, is it? It's just, they're just going to slightly tweak it because I think they probably kind of like it. They've got used to it. They're settled into it. It's how they work. So I don't think there's going to be any major changes coming on.
Also, I mean, we're looking to have like a general election next year anyway. So, how much real change can the current government really do? Because I mean, in the wake of all this, I mean, I don't really hold out any expectations of them staying in power. So I mean, I think that'll be something for the next government to do, really.
But will the next government do it?
Well,
Once
this is
you're
the
in power,
question. This is the
why
question.
would you do it? You don't need to anymore, do you?
I'm, the opposition leaders, they're chanting pretty loud for all this change, but are they just using it as another way to get votes?
It seems that the Conservatives are using it as a way to call our next election because they know they're
They're in a good position. Yeah.
But I doubt that once they get in power, they'll be talking the same kind of things about changing the parliamentary system because, after all, it's a system that would have elected them. So why would you change it?
Exciting stuff.